Hi, good evening. Welcome along to the Transfer Show. The clubs have 6 days to get their deals over the line in this early summer window. 6 days, that's all. Well, plenty of players are returning to their parent clubs now the season's over. That includes Raheem Sterling. We'll have a look at his options. Pep Guardiola is about to add to his squad. We'll hear about his next signing at Manchester City. And in our hour-long show at 7, we'll look at who he might move on, as he insists he only wants to work with a small squad. After lifting the Europa League trophy with Tottenham, is Heung-min Son on the move? We'll look at where things stand with him. And Sunderland are back in the Premier League after 8 years away. Stand by for news of who they're planning to bring in as Jude Bellingham heads a list of key players going the other way. James Green, Mark McCallum have told me they're across everything tonight, so you're in for a treat. OK, good evening, gentlemen. James, let's start with Raheem Sterling. The forgotten man at Arsenal. What happens to him now?
Well, at the moment, he goes straight back to Chelsea after his loan spell. I just want to take us back to the summer. And actually, when that signing was made, it felt like it was a signing that made a lot of sense. Arsenal didn't have to pay his full wages. Chelsea was supplementing a big portion of that. Player with a lot of experience. He had a great time at Manchester City. I think between 2017 and 2020, he scored 18, 17, 20 goals. This is a proven goal scorer, over 80 caps for England. It felt like that deal made sense. Bit of backup for Bukayo Saka, but it hadn't worked out. 28 appearances in all competitions, just one goal, and that came in the Carabao Cup, third round against Bolton, 6 Premier League starts. There was even times, Mike, when Mikel Arteta was looking at his bench, looking at options to bring on. I particularly remember the game against Manchester United at Old Trafford, 1-1, and he's looking at his bench. He chose to bring on Kieran Tierney instead, and there was a pretty miserable Raheem Sterling on the bench that time. It's just a move that hasn't worked out for him. The issue now goes to Chelsea. They've got a player that's got 2 years left on his £300,000 a week contract. What do they do next? Where does he go next?
That is the question mark. This is a man who's played for Liverpool, he's played for Manchester City, he's played for Chelsea, he's played for Arsenal, big clubs. What does he do now?
Well, obviously, he's still got 2 years left on his current Chelsea deal. He was one of the last of the old era. He was one of the last Roman Abramovich signings at Stamford Bridge. And obviously, we know what came with that. Big wages, big money. But Chelsea have gone in a completely different direction. They've restructured the way they do business. They've given longer-term contracts, less weekly wages. And Raheem Sterling, as James has said, is going to be one of the top earners at Chelsea at the moment. So therefore, he doesn't currently fit in to their wage structure right now. So they'll be looking at the situation saying, look, as much as we respect you and like you, you don't fit into what we're doing right now. Be interesting to see what Enzo Maresca says, although based on what's happened this season, he's taken a lot of guidance from those above about the players he can and can't use, and of course, what they want to do financially with regards to these types of players.
Did you say Raheem's got 2 years left?
Yes.
2 years. So he's on big money. So why doesn't he just sit there and take his money?
Well, he could. Of course, he could. He's one of those players who's been there, done it, got the T-shirt, not only at club level, 10 trophies at Manchester City. Also, he's been on the biggest stage for England as well. He's played for the biggest clubs. What left is there for him to achieve in this country? Maybe he might say, well, actually, I might look abroad. I might want to see what other opportunities there are in Europe. I might want to maybe go to the Saudi Pro League, of course. And Chelsea will probably sit down with him and say, look, actually, we respect that and understand that. But for us, we don't see a future here. Maybe he didn't give enough on the pitch at Arsenal, but there's no question, when you look at this player, he still has so much to offer a group, a squad, and I think that's the key thing for Raheem Sterling. OK, all right, so Raheem, he's on his way out of Arsenal of that loan spell. Thomas Partey at one stage looked like he was on his way out of Arsenal. No more. What's the latest with him, James?
The latest is Arsenal are in talks with his representatives about extending his contract. Now, his contract runs out at the end of June. Now, Arsenal this evening or this afternoon, they announced players leaving the whole squad, not just the men's team, the women's team, the academy as well. His name was at the bottom with alongside, I think Chloe Kelly's was on there from the women's side as well. The fact they're having discussions about potentially extending. This is a player, 31 years old. He made more appearances in the Premier League for Arsenal this season than he has done in all the other seasons previously. So 5 seasons he's been remarkably important for Arsenal this season, perhaps surprisingly for some actually, but he really brought the best out of Declan Rice. Declan Rice speaks so highly about his role in the team. He was adaptable this season, able to play right back for big portions when Arsenal went through their full-back problems, when every single full-back they had, which was at the start of the season deemed an area where they've got so many, but they all seem to be full crock of injuries. He's stepped in then. So, look, he's a player that did become very... Miles Lewis-Skelly, who potentially now sees his future as a left-back, it leaves that central midfield area pretty bare, especially a defensive midfield area, if you can extend his contract and if they can negotiate the best wage structure for the club and for the player. It seems like that's a deal that will make sense to extend that for either a year or another year.
And Zubimendi coming into Arsenal as well. Still not happened yet officially, but that's one to keep an eye on because we understand that Arsenal have triggered his release clause. So, yeah, that is another addition to that midfield area that is obviously in desperate need of numbers at the moment.
Yeah, great signing too. I want to take you back to Chelsea, Mark. No, James, you can do this. What's the goalkeeping situation?
Well, look, Mike Magnon, we were talking about a little bit yesterday when news kind of filtered that Chelsea might be interested in the goalkeeper. Now, we understand that actually Chelsea have been offered the services of the goalkeeper, but they're trying to negotiate the fee. They don't want to pay a big fee for this for the keeper because he's got 1 year left on his contract. But he's an experienced keeper, France #1, 29 years old, AC Milan captain. And actually, when we look at that Chelsea side, and a lot of questions asked about Chelsea over the last year has been about their lack of experience. Well, this is certainly a player who will be able to provide that. Leadership qualities in there as well. And I think Robert Sanchez, their current #1, maybe an unconvincing season in goal. But Chelsea, at the moment, still comfortable with the goalkeepers they've got. I think they've got 4, or we may have worked out about 8 or 9 yesterday, but 4 main first-choice keepers that they like and they're comfortable with, and they're not going to be rushed into a decision, but it feels like this is an opportunity that's been provided to them. Maybe not an area they were looking to target originally in this summer transfer window, but as we know, clubs need to be adaptable to opportunities that just come up, and this could be one that they might well take advantage of.
Yeah, it's interesting. The Raheem Sterling situation reminds us that there are an awful lot of players going back to their parent clubs who their parent clubs may or may not want them. Mark, talk us through that situation, and in particular Philip Billing, who of course has got a nice Serie A trophy.
Incredible. Another player just on that theme as well, Kepa, going from Bournemouth to Chelsea. One player going back into Bournemouth is this man, Philip Billing. And it's amazing, really, because he wasn't getting a lot of game time, wasn't starting many matches, wasn't playing his best football, although at times he'd been incredible for Bournemouth. Went out on loan in January, the winter window, to Napoli. Didn't start many games in Serie A, but earned enough to get himself a medal. And now comes back to Bournemouth as a Serie A winner under Antonio Conte. So quite astonishing, really. He looked like he just wasn't going to get any game time. Suddenly, he comes back with a league title. So, yeah, that's the situation. He's going to return from Napoli to Bournemouth. There was an option in that deal, but at the minute it doesn't look like Napoli are going to trigger it. But like you rightly say, this is one of many players that have all been sent out on loan for the back half of last season that are all suddenly going to be back at their clubs.
Yeah, and we talked a lot about Jadon Sancho yesterday, but I want to talk Marcus Rashford. What on earth are Manchester United going to do with him?
Well, this is, again, another one, isn't it? And I think we look at Rashford, we look at Sancho, you look at Anthony. I think we might get on to Anthony a little bit. But you look at where loan signings actually work well. Look, he had no future at Manchester United. Ruben Amorim made it very, very clear he didn't want him part of the first-team squad. Actually very different to the Anthony situation, where Anthony was included in pretty much the majority of Amorim's squads. But then he's gone on to have a really positive loan spell with Aston Villa. In particular, that second leg at Villa Park against PSG, I thought he was utterly phenomenal. That was the best of Marcus Rashford. And he shows that he's got something still to give. But he's back at Manchester United. He's got a contract, I believe it's till 2028. 200k a week he's on. Manchester United are looking to offload. So the options are really, is someone going to come in and pay £40 million, which seems to be the fee that's earmarked for Marcus Rashford, or is someone going to come in and want to loan the player and pay his 200k a week wages? That's the options he's got. But it's where...
Talk me through the mechanics of this then. how does it work? If you're someone who's interested in Rashford, do you just sit tight and wait and wait and wait until Manchester United are desperate to get rid so you get the best deal? Is that how it works?
Absolutely. If you walk into Manchester United and say we want to take Marcus Rashford, they're going to say you've got to pay all of his wages and you've got to give us £40 million. Full stop. And that's
if you want him now.
If you want him now. In 4 weeks' time, that might change. In 6 weeks' time, that might change. 2 or 3 days before the deadline closes at the end of August, it will be a very different deal. That's why you've seen players like Jadon Sancho go from Manchester United to Chelsea, or Raheem Sterling go from Chelsea to Arsenal, where you've got Chelsea and Manchester United playing huge chunks of their wages, because actually it's better to shift 50% of the wages off the bill instead of keep paying 100% and not really have them involved. So therefore, this is where a lot of clubs will sit tight over the course of the start of this window. You see clubs like Liverpool who go into the market. They've got targeted players. This is what we want. This is where we're going to go and strengthen. And these are the players that are going to add to our squad. And for those other players that may be a little bit further down the list, they'll just go, well, let's just wait and see. There's not going to be huge numbers of clubs coming in for Marcus Rashford right now because, as James has said, £40 million, £300,000 a week, that's a tough deal to do for most clubs. So therefore, there's only a very small group of clubs that can entertain that kind of finance. So they'll just say, well, let's just wait and see. And then they'll make their move. So at the minute, there will be one price, but in 6 weeks' time or 10 weeks' time, that price will change.
And, you know, as I was mentioning, Amorim made it pretty clear he doesn't see Marcus Rashford as part of his plans moving forward. So, again, clubs can go, right, let's take a step back. We've got time on this because they're going to want to offload him. They want to offload this player. We're going to try and get the best deal possible. So
it's a massive game of chicken, is what you're telling me.
Yeah.
So Anthony's back at Manchester United. Same for him, is it?
Yeah, same situation. Obviously, he got to the Europa Conference League final with Real Betis. Was starting week in, week out, was scoring, was putting on social media how much he was loving life in Spain. Away from United. And therefore, you know, he was making all of those right noises. But this is a player that Manchester United invested around £80 million in, and they're paying him handsomely as well. They are going to want to recoup as much of that as they possibly can. My information is that Manchester United are open to all types of offers for Anthony, but you know that Real Betis are not going to get anywhere close to £80 million. So therefore, is one of those back in the building for the moment, but let's see how things progress. And that's the key with a lot of these players that go back to their parent clubs. How do they get on? What does the manager see? Do they start pre-season with the right type of attitude? Do they show something in those early pre-season training sessions and games where they say, OK, this is a clean slate? And that's where it could get quite interesting for some of these players.
Yeah, be good. All right, let's take a break. Racing through this. Now, Mark yesterday was telling us Bournemouth fans will be pretty chilled with the fact that they're losing all these top defenders. Are they? Milos Kerkez. Welcome back to the Transfer Show. We're going to talk Manchester City now, and I want to talk Jack Grealish. Mark, what's the latest on Grealish?
Well, the information we're getting here at Sky Sports News about Jack Grealish is he's not going to be going to the Club World Cup. And I think that is a massive signal to the rest of the footballing world that Jack Grealish is available. You just have to look at his game time over the course of the last few weeks and months. He's been a bit part player, and Pep Guardiola on a number of occasions has opted to use younger players, inexperienced players, more defensive players, when actually you think most people would say, well, Jack Grealish right now, he could impact this game. He could change and transform this match and the outcome of this. So therefore, you have to just say, based on that evidence, based on what we know, this is going to be a really interesting summer for Jack Grealish. We know he's on huge money. He's the first £100 million player in the Premier League.
What is get for a player who costs them £100 million who doesn't play in their side?
They're not going to get close to 100 million for him, but this is a player that's still full of talent. He's still got a lot to give. We've seen glimpses of it this season. I think he was playing for England in that more central role and actually looked brilliant in that central role for England, just behind the forward. I think he's going to have plenty of suitors, but it's just a big shame, isn't it? You know, I don't know whether that's because I've got my British hat on, that I want to see British players really perform, really do well. But like Mark said, there were so many moments last season where Pep Guardiola looked at his bench and chose youngsters or defenders over him. And we saw it, I was mentioning with Mikel Arteta looking at Raheem Sterling and ignoring him. Pep Guardiola's doing the same with Jack Grealish. I think there'll be plenty of suitors for Jack. I think he's got a lot to give still.
The problem is wages. But it's the same problem. Yeah. We've got it with so many players at the moment. Raheem Sterling, Jadon Sancho, Jack Grealish, Marcus Rashford. Yeah. They're all big hitters. They're all earning big money. So therefore, you're going to need a Man City to do a little bit of the heavy lifting, or you're going to have to find a club maybe in the Saudi Pro League that says, don't worry about the wages, we can offer you more and we'll take you on and we'll pay what Manchester City want. To answer your question, what's he worth? You'd have to say 40 million, maybe, something like that, similar to Marcus Rashford. He's 29 years old. He's still got time on his contract at Manchester City. But, of course, it's just going to be what can we get back, because clearly he's not in their plans.
Yeah, OK. All right, listen, we're going to do a much deeper dive on Jack Grealish at 7 o'clock. Stay with us for that. But let's stay with City then, James. They have been making moves today. Tell us about this gentleman.
Yeah, deal agreed for Tijani Reinders, deal worth £46.3 million. The player is going to sign a 5-year contract with the club. 26-year-old midfielder. He was the Serie A midfielder of the year last year, scored 10 goals in Serie A. He's creative, and there's this hole in the midfield of Manchester City, as you well know, Mike, a certain Kevin De Bruyne-shaped hole, and this is one way of starting to fill it. I don't think you can't replace Kevin De Bruyne, of course, but he's certainly going to be a big part of doing so. Netherlands international too. And this is the first one that looks set to come in before the 10th of June deadline, which means he will be available to play at the Club World Cup.
City, of course, have said they are going to strengthen. They have an interest in Aït-Nouri from Wolves and also Ryan Cherki as well. Is that enough?
Well, it's interesting because you're getting this feeling in the window at the minute that Manchester City want to play at the transfer table. They want to bring new players in. They want to add to the squad. And there's a number of players that are being linked with this. But that contrasts what Pep Guardiola says. I want to work with a small squad. I want to work with a tight squad.
Well, it means people have to go, Mark.
And therefore, yes, people will have to go. And even Pep Guardiola has said as much as, if this is a big squad, I'm not going to be here. You know, I need to work with what I work with. So you'd have to say, we've spoke about Jack Grealish, but there is likely to be a number of big-name departures from Manchester City. One player that fits into that remit of coming out on loan, Kyle Walker, coming back to the football club. What do they do with him? He's another one in that bracket. Yeah. And he would be on big money as well. So therefore, they are going to be fascinating to watch over the course of certainly the next few days to the window, closing on the 10th. But then after the Club World Cup, what do they do? Who does he use in the Club World Cup? What players are involved? Because you'll start to see the rebuild that started in January take shape for that mini-tournament.
Right, listen, I want to race through.
Race through.
race through. I'm going to let you talk as much as you like at 7, but I want to talk Heung-min Son.
Yeah.
Are Spurs really going to let their talisman go?
Yes, if the right offer comes in. He's been at the club for a long period of time, delivered that trophy, remarkable situation. He's a real fan's favourite. He is someone that absolutely symbolises everything that football club is about. One of my favourite images of the season was him and his dad hugging after they won the Europa League. He's an outstanding player. He's a team player. He's given everything to that football club for a number of years. Now, the situation as we understand it, and this was a story that broke on Sky Sports News earlier today, Spurs would listen to significant offers for Son. However, he turned down the Saudi Pro League last summer. He wanted to stay. Turned out to be the right decision. He rejected them. The thing is, he's 33 years old. He's got 1 year left on his current deal. So it's an interesting one to keep an eye on. But the club say, look, if you decide you're ready for a new challenge, we're not going to stand in your way, providing the money is right. So they have basically put the ball in his court and said, it's up to you. We've got that much respect between us that if you feel it's time, it's time.
Tell us why it won't happen now, though.
Well, it's not going to happen now because they've got a tour of Asia to go to. He, off the pitch, is so important to that football club, and the deal's not going to happen before that tour takes place. When they come back, maybe it happens. Just on Sonny, look, it's 7 goals last year, real drop-off in his performances. Age does catch up with us, and maybe that's the case. His electric pace has been so key to his success, and maybe he's just dropped off that level. And at the Premier League, we know that you drop off a little bit, as Kyle Walker discovered, who was probably the fastest defender we've probably seen in the Premier League. It can really make a difference. So, look, I'm surprised by it, but then when you look at it, his age, 33 in July, maybe it's the time. And by the way, just to throw a curveball in there, left-hand side player, potentially departing. There's a left-hand side player we were talking about just a second ago in Jack Grealish. Maybe that's a nice fit.
Oof, there you go. Quick word about Kerkez at Bournemouth. You telling me that they're cool losing all their top players? They can't be cool losing this one as well.
No, of course, Bournemouth hierarchy don't want to lose any of their stars, but they understand it's part of the project. Now, this is a name that people have been talking about, Liverpool fans have been talking about for what feels like weeks and months now, about a potential move to Anfield. Situation is very much as it was yesterday. No formal club-to-club contract, but we know that there is a growing confidence within the towers at Liverpool that they can get their ban. Normally, when we hear those types of noises, it means there's been some kind of dialogue between Kerkez's representatives and Liverpool to suggest, look, yeah, we can find some common ground with the deal, with the wages, with the package. Now it's about going to Bournemouth and saying, right, what do you want for one of your star players, a man that started 38 Premier League games out of 38 last year, key player for Bournemouth, joined in 2023, cost a significant sum as well, so they're not going to want to sell him on the cheap. And having already sold Howson, Bournemouth don't need to sell any players, so the ball very much in their court.
All right. I'll tell you what we're going to do when we come back at 7. We're going to talk about the teams that have come up into the Premier League. For the last 2 seasons, the teams that have come up have gone down. How do the 3 new boys get there and stay there? We're going to talk Sunderland, who we understand 4 or 5 new players are interested in them. And we're going to talk the other 2 as well and see how much money they've got to spend. That will all be in the transfer show with James and Mark, 7 o'clock, right here on Sky Sports News. They're going for a half-time break.
Welcome back to Sportlab, where we don't just follow transfers, we track the full tactical and emotional impact. 2 big Premier League stories breaking right now. One involves PSG circling Bournemouth's defensive gem Ilya Zabany, and the other sees Newcastle moving for Brighton's João Pedro. Let's dive in. PSG make move for Zabany. Big concern for Bournemouth fans today. Ukraine Ilya Zabany, the standout Ukrainian centre-back, has drawn interest from Champions League winners PSG. No formal bid yet, just an inquiry, but it's serious enough to raise alarms at the vitality. Remember, Bournemouth already lost Zabany's partner Lloyd Kelly. He is now at Real Madrid, and they will not want to break up the spine of a defence that delivered their best ever Premier League finish. Zabany's composed style, aerial dominance, and ability to play out from the back make him ideal for PSG's evolving back line, but Bournemouth know replacing 2 starting centre-backs in one window is a gamble. Newcastle eye João Pedro. Meanwhile, on Tyneside, Newcastle United are keen on João Pedro from Brighton. The versatile Brazilian forward has drawn admiration across Europe, but Newcastle are seriously considering a move. They're not planning to sell Alexander Isak. In fact, they want to pair the 2. With Callum Wilson possibly leaving this summer contract expires, the Magpies are thinking ahead for Champions League depth. Brighton boss Fabian Hürzeler made it clear late last season, Pedro is not for sale. But interest is rising and Newcastle have the funds and need. João Pedro's off-ball movement, link-up ability, and pressing work rate make him perfect for Eddie Howe's high-energy system, especially in a squad where rotation will be key for European success. 2 massive stories in motion: PSG looking to rebuild with Zabany, and Newcastle aiming to upgrade their forward line with João Pedro. Will Bournemouth resist PSG's approach? Can Brighton hold off a top 4 challenger? Let us know your take in the comments. And as always, subscribe, like, and turn on Sportlab notifications so you don't miss a single tactical twist or transfer shake-up.